or it also supports GELF, which is a Graylog format. And there's a lot of options out there that have just kind of popped up in the last couple of years as far as log management goes. Snort supports logging directly to MySQL. At small scale, that's fine. It works great. At medium and large scale, that's troublesome. I've seen MySQL servers, cry. So if you're in a big environment and you're dealing with 10 or 20 or 50 gigs a day of IDS traffic, probably not the best option. Graylog is something that's popped up in the last 2 years, and it's based off of Elasticsearch. It uses clustering techniques, and you essentially set up Graylog to absorb all your syslog, and then it loads it into an Elasticsearch database, which is a schemaless database, allowing you to search and do plain text on it, and then also extract fields and build your own dashboards. So it's still being developed, but it's getting better. And then kind of a simple, stupid solution that's kind of a halfway point between Graylog and just grepping it yourself. Our syslog has a plugin which allows you to hook directly into the Elasticsearch database, and then you can use a program called Kibana. And Kibana allows you to go through and search and basically do the same things that Graylog can. Although my chief complaint with Kibana is that it is not an enterprise tool. There's no login system. It doesn't hook into LDAP. It doesn't, have multiple users. It's just whoever has it can. And if you haven't protected your Elasticsearch environment, then anybody can search your database. So be careful with that. OSIM is an open source security information and event manager, and it has Suricata and a ton of open source best of breed sensors built into it, it's okay for small environments. Once again, it has real problems when you try to scale it. So you can pipe all your Snort logs to it, and then it'll be able to parse it and give you some good reporting and graphics. And then I mentioned Splunk before. Live demo isn't going to happen because I didn't follow one of my rules. So remember, pay attention to the quality of the SD card.
Are Micro Center cards quality cards?
They're not. I got a Micro Center special at one point when working with earlier Raspberry Pis. I put it in there, and then halfway through the install, the file system disconnected. And then got all the way through the install and through the first boot, and then halfway through the first boot it disconnected from the file system, and it gave me a kernel panic. And it just kept doing that over and over and over again, and it was just because that SD card manufacturer and controller just couldn't handle it on the Raspberry Pi. So, I mentioned before getting up-to-date rule sources. So Emerging Threats is a good resource, and snort.org you can also get updated rules. And both offer free and paid-for services. And Snort from the package repositories tends to work. Suricata tends not. So you may, the advantage of using Suricata is that it is super fast. So if you have a multi-core system with oodles of RAM and you're trying to monitor 10 gigs of traffic, Suricata is the way to go. Snort is old, reliable, and well understood and well documented. So because the Raspberry Pi is built for a small environment, Snort's probably the best option in that there's less configuration to do, less hacking to do on it. And you may be tempted to enable all of the rules. Don't do that. It's bad. So if you do that, then it's doing everything, including checking the fields of the IP packets to see if the sequence of the connection is correct and the acts and sends were exchanged in the correct order, and it goes through and it tells you if somebody's trying to use, file sharing. And I mean, some of that's interesting, but it just gives it floods you. So be very careful. You want to go through each of your rules and match it against things that you're going to find in your environment. Oh. Sorry, let's keep going. Pre-processing is a feature that's in Snort, and I think there's some pre-processing features. I'm not really familiar with Suricata. I'm pretty certain they both support it. Pre-processing allows it to go through, and as the IDS signatures are coming through, if somebody's taken like most Nmap scans don't show up inside of Snort. There's like one that, if you use the really loud, obnoxious Nmap scan, it's going to show up. But anything else pretty much doesn't show up. So pre-processing's had to do that. It'll go through and actually take the traffic and then go through and make sure it's decoded and resequenced correctly. So, and then you'll see the scans. And clean your logs regularly. With these little SD cards, there's not a lot of storage, and you can generate an awful lot of logs very quickly with this. So setting up a scheduled task using cron to go through and clean out that logs directory is a really important thing you want to do. And then making sure the operating system, of course, is up to date is a good idea too. apt-get update. Yeah, or else you'll have something on your network that's terribly vulnerable if you don't update it. So make sure that this is part of your regular activities. And when you're working with Snort and Suricata, they use roughly the same type of configuration language to create rules. It's really easy to go in, and if you look at the format at the bottom here, it's you can set up an alert, tell it that you want to look at TCP, give it a variable for your home net, and then any port to any external net with external ports of 661 and 668. And then you can put in a message that's going to show up as part of the signature. And then, let's see here. This is a new skill for me, so I'm still kind of still researching it. But in this case, it's looking for a join statement for IRC. So IRC is port 666, 667 in that range. And so this rule goes and takes a look to see if somebody's making an IRC call. And what's the importance of IRC? Somebody know? CNC, botnets. So what they'll do is they'll connect to a IRC server, go out on the network, join a specific chat group, and then the command and control server bot is there, and it gives it its instructions for whose day you're going to ruin. So take a look at Snort's website and also Suricata's website on kind of how to put together rules. They're really cool. And don't forget that if you find something really cool, like a 0 day, make sure you go and give something back. So don't keep it a secret. If you find some cool rules that will detect 0 day activity in your environment, don't keep it a secret. Don't be that guy.
Sell that shit.
So,
Any questions? Yes.
on alerting, do you just have somebody monitoring the physical system, or are you able to forward through emails or anything of that?
So the question was that how do you do alerting? And with Snort, you have a feature you can enable that will send daily reports of all the alarms that it receives. So that can be part of it. So it can just email you, and then you can take a look at that email, and it'll tell you, okay, I've received these signatures, so I might need to take a look at it. Another thing you can do is it depends on the log management system or security information and management system. A lot, like for instance, OSIM will do alerting and reporting, and it does it based off of cross-correlation. So if it detects that there's a Snort signature, and then it also detects that there's a surge in network traffic, and it detects that there's a warning from the workstation that you have malware, then it'll cross-correlate that into that computer's infected and you can program it to send emails, you can have it run an arbitrary shell script or something like that. So that would be one way of live alerting that you could do with OSIM. With Graylog and some of the other kind of log management systems, they're not that good at alerting. They're good at statistical information, so if you take measurements of your network traffic, then it can tell you that you're doing more network traffic, outside of business hours, therefore there must be something wrong, but it's not really meant for security event management. So OSIM is kind of built for that, and so it would be a better choice just for off-the-shelf alerting. You can go through and create alerts just by having a cron job do a grep on your syslog text files and looking for specific keywords. I mean, that's rough, but
Does OSIM tie into establish?
OSIM does not. If you go to them and give them money, they will give you their log management system, which is they assure is great, and it just blows up every 6 months, dies, lose data. Okay, I didn't say. Okay, anyway, I've had experiences, not necessarily good ones. So that's for a small scale environment. OSIM is a good option. Any other questions? Yes.
You try an Arch Linux?
Arch Linux? And what in Arch Linux?
Do you try to write an Arch Linux what we instead of Raspberry?
Well, that gets into, you could literally do this with any type of Linux. The reason why I chose Raspbian is that it has all of the software and hardware and driver updates prepackaged in. So it's the one that's meant to be installed on there. Everything else it can be installed, but it may not necessarily have all the stuff you need to make it work right.
There's your Raspberry Pi version of Arch.
Oh, well, yeah, I know that. It's out there. It's just doesn't necessarily have
I built
the
something
right.
similar with
Yeah.
Arch. It works.
Yeah. Everybody has their favorite flavor of Linux.
I wouldn't say it's my favorite.
What about performance?
Network performance, like I said, you peak out at about 480, and that's just the limitation of USB 2. You can get gigabit Ethernet adapters for USB 2, but I mean, they're not going to go beyond that. If you're using a passive tab, you're talking about 2 Ethernet adapters, one for the incoming stream and one for the outgoing stream. So keep that in mind. And that can only do 10/100 Ethernet anyway. So I think the limitation on this is that you could do gigabit Ethernet. It's just, and most gigabit Ethernet doesn't hit gigabit all the time. It'll bounce around about 500 or 600. So it's doable. Like I said, once you start getting to the point where you're overwhelming it, where you're hitting the maximum ability of it to process Ethernet traffic, then you need to look at getting a more expensive solution. Then on my last option here, I wanted to, in the security business, whenever you visit somebody's house, they show off all their cool crime fighting equipment. So this is something that, darn you. New Mac. All right, well that's it.
Joel Kershner, everybody. So how about these Raspberry Pi 2s? That's 2